something I've noticed for a while now is it seems like there are so many people in our modern world that just have a complete lack of meaning in their life. And this is something I've been trying to figure out for a while now. And I was working on the house today, and just for whatever reason, things started coming to me, and I think I understand a big part of it now. Okay, and I've got two stories to explain this. All right, the first one, back when the superhero movies started coming out, I've got friends that were into comics, and they were just excited. I mean, this was a big deal for them, Spider-Man and Iron Man and all of that. And they watched those movies and they went over every detail, and this referenced the comic book, and then they were mad about this because it went against what had been in the comic books. And I mean, they were just into this. And they were excited and mad and frustrated. And then their other friends that were really into comics. Okay, they're talking about this nonstop. And this was a cultural event for them. All right, well, I realized then for something to have meaning, we have to know something about it. Okay, I didn't know anything about comics, so the movies were just pretty much meaningless to me. Just, okay, some new movies came out. All right, now for the second story. I had a similar event recently where I was just all excited about something like that. And I was learning about John Ruskin. Okay, really interesting fella. He lived in the 1800s, born in the early 1800s, and he was an art critic, most famously an art critic. But he was also an artist, social philosopher, and architect expert. Okay, and something he said that I thought was really good and ties in with some things I'd been thinking is that when a society is prospering and things are going well, it produces beautiful art and architecture. Okay, well, when a society is not prospering, it produces ugly art and architecture. Okay, and at that time it was during the Industrial Revolution, and it was a lot of social change, and it was a difficult period for a lot of people. Okay, and they were producing ugly art and architecture very similar to today. Okay, what he led a push, a movement to bring back architecture from the past, and he considered Gothic architecture to be the highest form of architecture, medieval architecture from Europe, the Gothic cathedrals and all of that. And that's because of the craftsmanship it took to build in that style. So the stonemasons and the people making the stained glass windows and the carpenters with the beams and just all of it. Okay, well then that became a style, it became the arts and crafts movement, but it led to Gothic revival, that style of architecture becoming popular again in England, and then eventually it spread here to the U.S. Okay, and we Americanized it. I mean, just like we so often do. And eventually, for just ordinary people here, it became American Gothic. All right, and for any of you that are like the farmhouse style now, the farmhouse style is just modern American Gothic. Okay, we don't even know about American Gothic now, but anyway, we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, well, a painting that I've talked about before is American Gothic. And most of you have seen this painting, and it's a famous painting. Most of us, though, we just know, okay, that looks really odd. And usually when we see this in popular culture, it's because somebody's making fun of it. But it's actually a really brilliant painting, and I'm constantly learning just how brilliant this was. Okay, Grant Wood, the artist who painted this, painted it in 1930. It's called American Gothic because of the farmhouse in the background. That's classic American Gothic, and you should be able to see the similarities between it and our farmhouse style now. Steep pitch roofs, board and batten siding, prominent gable window. All right, But the reason it looks so odd is because he painted it using a medieval painting style. It's a super realistic style of painting. Okay, that's why it looks strange. Okay, well, after learning about Ruskin, all of a sudden American Gothic just became that much more interesting because suddenly I could see the humor in this and the irony. Okay, we've got an American painter doing a painting of a medieval architecture style here in America. It's of Americans, and he's using a medieval style of painting to do it. And America wasn't even a thought during the medieval period. And I think this John Ruskin had a lot to do with this painting, and this is just me speculating, but John Ruskin didn't like that style of painting. So the style of architecture, American Gothic, that came from John Ruskin, an art critic. Well, a painter here did a painting of that architectural style, and a style of painting that John Ruskin didn't like at all. Anyway, just so much irony there. And it was so fun connecting all of those dots. Okay, well, for me, that was fun. Just like it was fun for my friends when they were connecting all of the dots with the past comic book issues and all of that stuff in the movies. But I realized today, and this was the big thing, I think, these are very different things. Okay, I'm interested in the art and architecture. Most people aren't now. And this has bothered me for a long time, that most people couldn't care less about architecture. And I realized today why it's bothered me. Okay, when we know about architecture, we can look in our neighborhoods, our own homes. Okay, most of us don't know about our home. We don't know about the architectural style. We don't know anything about it, really. Well, remember what I said about for things to be meaningful, we have to know something about it. So our homes aren't meaningful, which means most of us are just living in boxes. I mean, we can say that box looks like it's more expensive than that box, and that box is uglier than this box, and that box is bigger than this box, but we're living in boxes. If we don't know anything about it, it's not meaningful, it's just a box. Okay, how depressing is that we're just living in boxes our entire lives? Okay, well, let's take this a step further. Our communities. Once we know about architectural styles, we can look at different houses in our communities, and that's interesting. That's this style, and this is this style, and I like what they did with that, and why, and all. We can connect all of those dots between all of that culture, past culture now, because it seems to be a thing of the past. We can connect all of those dots to what was common knowledge, to the homes around us, our neighborhoods, the buildings, the churches, all of it. Okay, and this is the big thing right here. When we know about things like that, when we look around us, it's like seeing the world in color. Our world, our culture, it's like seeing it in color. When we don't know about any of that, it's like seeing it in black and white. All right, so then we're just living in a drab, dreary world that has very little meaning, and it's just not interesting. And it's only interesting because we just don't know these things. Whereas in 1930, when Grant Wood painted American Gothic, everybody knew, or almost everybody, at least everybody that liked paintings, knew this stuff. Okay, that was why it was automatically recognized, hey, this is a really great painting. This is, there's a lot of dots we can connect here. This is fun. It's interesting. Not now. Okay, whereas my friends, okay, they're comic books. They're connecting those dots, and that's fun for them. But it has nothing to do with their everyday world, the actual physical things they're surrounded by. Okay, that whole comic book universe is completely abstract. It is completely removed from everyday reality. Okay, whereas in the past, things like American Gothic, it was connected to everyday reality. Architecture is connected to our everyday reality. Right. I think that's why so many people lack meaning now. It's they don't know about the cultural things that connect with our everyday reality, so they're surrounded by things that are just essentially meaningless. Okay, I apologize for not being able to explain this better, but I'm just connecting the dots myself. I'm putting this together in real time. But I think this is really important because I think the sense of meaningless going forward is going to get worse. Okay, 100 years ago, 1925, people knew about the things around them. They knew landscaping. Okay, people were really into gardening, and they knew about the different types of flowers and bushes and shrubs and all of that stuff, and the different gardening styles. And I don't mean vegetable gardens, I mean aesthetic, visually pleasing gardens. How many of us know about any of that now? Okay, whereas 100 years ago, that was a cultural thing for people. All right, so they were into gardening and all of the different plants, and then other people were, and they'd talk about this stuff, and they'd share cuttings from different, plants and so forth with each other, and talk about the different gardening styles, and okay, similar to my friends with the comic books. All right, but the big difference is, with the comic books, that's not real. It doesn't apply to the real world. Whereas with the gardening, when those people got finished, they had beautiful gardens. Okay, and when they looked at other gardens and yards and landscaping around them in the neighborhoods and so forth, they knew, okay, oh, look, that's that type flower, and I like what they did with that style of garden and so forth. Okay, they were looking at the world around them in color, and it was interesting. Versus now, you just drive through a neighborhood. Oh, that's a pretty yard. You might get that, and that's about it. As a matter of fact, almost all of the yards now look identical. It's the same landscaping crew coming out there and putting in the same generic 3 bushes and cutting the grass, but spraying it with the same chemicals so that they all look the same. The houses are just boxes and the yards are just whatever. Okay, and again, I'm putting this together in real time right now. I think the reason for this is mass media. Okay, 1925. You weren't watching a movie. If you were, it was probably a silent movie. I don't know when sound became a thing, but it's probably in the early 30s. You weren't watching TV. You were listening to a radio, and you were reading. Okay, so you had time to actually stop and think about things, whereas most movies are just to keep us on the edge of our seat and nonstop action, or to invoke some sort of emotion. Oh, look, he got revenge. Yeah. There's not a lot of thought that goes into any of that. Okay, and then there's nothing very little we can get from a movie that has anything to do with our actual environment. And I think what we're getting into here, and this is getting past my pay grade, we're getting into the abstract and the real. Okay, and I think when cultures are thriving and when they're doing well, they integrate the two. Okay, so architecture, it's abstract. It's a set of ideas that, they're just in our head, they don't exist or whatever, for a style that these are the principles for this style. But then a building is actually constructed using those principles, and that's combining the abstract with the real. Okay, I think what's happening now is we're just all abstract. We've lost touch with the reality. Modern art, a perfect example. Modern architecture. It's not about any philosophy, it's about saving money. How cheaply can we build this building? Anyway, I think all of this is going to get worse as more people get more into the online world and social media and all of this stuff, and they just completely lose touch with the real. And we can see, I think that's a huge part of our political divide. Okay, all of the stuff, crazy stuff now with sex, is people that believe this stuff have just completely lost touch with actual real reality. All right, so yeah, now you throw in AI and the stuff that's coming with that, and robotics and pornography, and people are going to become further removed from reality. And as they do, they're going to be surrounded by more and more meaningless around them, because they're going to know less and less about their actual, real physical world they're surrounded by. And that's not going to be a good future. And to take this one step further, again, I haven't thought this through, but I think God combines the abstract and real for us. And I don't mean psychologically. I believe in God. Yeah, I'm one of those Christians. I think that's what God does for us. He keeps on connected. God himself is an abstract idea, but he's also real at the same time. And I think when we lose God, we literally lose touch with reality. And then if we look around and see how much our churches are declining and so forth, and even taking that a step further, so many things around us are connected to the Bible in so many ways. Well, if we don't know anything about the Bible, we don't even realize that. Our judges are called judges because they were judges in the Bible. And the judges in the Bible were on circuits. They traveled around on a circuit. That's where our circuit courts come from, or the name for it. Okay, so there are so many cultural references to the Bible that if you don't know anything about the Bible, then again, just knowing about things make them meaningful, and we just know so little about anything around us now. And as the social media, AI and all that becomes more prominent, most of us are going to know less. All right, so read a book and take up gardening and learn about some architecture. So try it for a little while and see if you don't look at the world around you differently. All right, I really hope that helps somebody out, and I just hope it helps some of you understand at least what I think is a part of this. And if I'm missing something here, comment below. I'm curious. Again, I'm just trying to figure this out myself. God bless, and have a great evening.